Hey everyone, Jeff here again from Armored Brush Minis. This is the second installment of my series showing you how I'm painting my dwarf army for Warmaster. As promised, throughout this series, I'll be showing you guys a picture of the army coming together at the end of the video. It's pretty satisfying seeing the army painted, and cool to see the to-do sitting beside the done. We'll be taking a look at dwarf rangers today, and these little guys were pretty straightforward to paint up, so let's hop right in. So to start, every model with armor in this army was sprayed with Leadbelcher Spray and dry brushed with Ironbreaker, both from Citadel. I wanted my dwarves to have bright, well-maintained armor, so this gives an easy way to prep everything without needing to do a lot of fiddly work later, getting armor that's hard to reach. This was an easy step, but I believe it gave these guys the right amount of shine, and just the spray alone would be lacking that kind of bling. Then I was on to the red cloaks. For this I used Wazdakka Red from Citadel. I'm going for a Clan Angrand color scheme for my army, so most of the colors for the heraldry will be red and blue. These cloaks are really tricky to get to, but since they cover a good portion of the models, it's worth making sure the color is really solid. And here's the blue I mentioned. This is the Fang from Citadel. Both the red and blue are a bit washed out, which I did to show that they spend most of their time scouting outside of the dwarf and mountain holds. I also went back and painted the trims around their chainmail skirts with the alternate color to their capes. So red capes got blue trim, and blue capes got red trim. Painting these trims took a little bit more time, but honestly added some really nice color variation, and I think they nicely framed in the chainmail altogether, as you can see more clearly in the next clip. Now this part took a really steady hand, and probably the most patience out of the whole unit, and that's getting all the leather portions. This time I used Mournfang Brown, and these details are all across these models, in their backpacks, pouches, and straps. I also painted the crossbow bolts with this color as well. Just keep an eye out as you're working through these rangers to grab all of the small details, and it'll really add to the completeness of the unit. On to the flesh. I'm not breaking any new ground here, so as with all of my dwarf models, I like to use Cadian Fleshtone. Since this is set pretty deep into their hoods, you have to be careful not to get any of the skin color from the face onto the fabric details. Instead of painting gloves on the rangers, I chose to paint their hands just as skin. I think it helps to break the metallics up pretty well too. These guys have some pretty gnarly calluses and skin, being out in the unforgiving wilderness all the time, and those leathery mitts don't need any gloves. This is another small detail, usually buried behind more stuff on these models, and it's the iconic dwarfen beards. These I painted in 3 different colors. First, I painted a mix of beards with Dryad Bark. Second, I painted some beards with Zandri Dust. And finally, I hit the remaining beards with Celestra Grey. I try to scatter the different beard colors throughout the unit, though I tend to favor the brown and blonde colors and sprinkle the greys in more sparingly, since I figure the long beards wouldn't be as inclined to spend their time roaming the mountain faces. They would much rather retire into the mountain, smoke their pipes, drink their beers, and argue about who killed more goblins during their career. Onto the bling. I hit the gold details with Retributor Armour. This is my go-to gold, and I use this on the axe details as well as the cloak and beard clasps. There's not nearly as much gold on these guys as the Slayers, so this step was quick and easy. Moving on to the weapon halves now. Just as the Slayers, I use straight Abaddon Black here. There's an opportunity if you wanted to take these models further, since they have sculpted grips. For this scale and this detail level, I just skip that part. But feel free to add any more details, or you can paint the weapon grips a completely different color if it really tickles your fancy. And now the fun bit, the command strips. I started out by hitting the pole's grip with Hive Dweller Purple Speed Paint, and the icon rims, pole cap wings, and pole bottom with Retributor Armour. Then I hit the icons with Highlord Blue and Blood Red speed paints. This ties them into the Slayers and keeps with the clan Angrund Blue and Red color scheme. I'll be using the same technique on my Ironbreaker shields when I paint them later in the army project. Now I painted the horns on the champion's helmet, beer froth, as well as the drum with Karak Stone. This is in preparation for some more speed paints we'll put on next. After that, I used Pallid Bone for the horns and drum skin, and Hardened Leather on the drum body. I really like the command strips for Warmaster. Even though the models are tiny, and the command models really have nothing to do with the game from a rules perspective, I think it really makes them look like little Warhammer units. I find it makes the game a lot more familiar, and really awesome aesthetically as a result. Finally, I picked out the icon symbols with gold, and the command strips were finished. The last step before taking this unit off to basing is a wash of Nuln Oil. This really helps tie together all of the metallics and add definition to the beards, as well as split the different cloth details apart. I use this color everywhere but the flesh and on the cloaks. A black wash would really dirty the flesh tone, and I like the cloaks to have a nice pop of color, so I don't want to darken that down. So that's it. These Dwarfen Rangers are finished. Once again, an excellent model from Forest Dragon and a must-have in a Warmaster Dwarf army list. Forest Dragon's Patreon, as well as all the paints used, army list, and link to the Warmaster rules are in the description. I'm pretty happy with the classic red and blue Clan Angrund color scheme, and the metallics are still bright enough to give the shine to them that I'm looking for. As always, thanks for watching today. If you learned something and want to see more painting tutorials for different game systems, as well as this army series, feel free to subscribe and check me out on Instagram at ArmoredBrushMinis. Please leave any feedback or requests in the comments, and I'll catch you on the next video.